I'm Sarah. I lived with undiagnosed binge eating disorder for over 12 years, and this is my story. My first memory of my eating disorder would have been when I was about 16 years old. And, as a teenage girl, life is a bit tough. I remember I had a falling out with my friendship group at high school, and that would have seemed like the end of the world for me. And then I was feeling really lonely and isolated, and I started to engage in eating behaviours with food, and food started to give me comfort, and it would numb those feelings of unworthiness and hopelessness. So that's my first memory of the beginning of the eating disorder. It definitely had an impact on my schooling, contributed to very low self-worth, and my marks, I wasn't probably getting as good as marks as I could have. I wasn't putting that effort into it. Was isolating myself from engaging in, sporting, and that also was because I wasn't feeling great about my body as well. So
it was stopping you from doing things.
Yeah, it was. So it was something that I lived with in silence and shame for 12 years. So
can you talk about just like a bit about that sort of journey, how that must have
yeah, sure. So it was a roller coaster ride. Some days I'd feel like I was really on top of what I was experiencing, and I'd have really great days. I'd have great things happening in my life with my relationships, with going to uni and friends and family. And then there'd be the really low days as well. So, I'd be comparing myself to other women, and then social media really took off, and that really impacted my relationship with my body.
About like that impact of social media, because it's such a big thing. I've got two daughters, and it's such a huge.
Yeah, it's huge, especially with Instagram, which is a visual platform, and people are always wanting to get, that perfect photo, and with filters and Photoshop, and when you don't see yourself represented on those perfect photos, you start thinking that there's something wrong with your body. Yeah. I didn't actually know that there was something not right with my relationship with food and my body. So I didn't even know binge eating disorder existed at this point. So it was not something that I was aware of. And because it is one of those eating disorders that is not as commonly spoke about as the other ones, I didn't have that awareness, and I don't think the healthcare professionals that I saw as well, such as my GP and counsellors, had that awareness either. So they weren't able to pick up the symptoms that I was showing.
So you went to healthcare professionals?
Yeah. And I didn't really know how to express that that's what I was going through. And so what eventually happened was, after years of going up and down, I ended up, it was luck. It just happened by luck, to be honest. I discovered through my psychologist at the time that there was a dietitian that specialised in disordered eating, and I went onto her website and I saw the symptoms of binge eating disorder, and I knew right then and there that that was me. So that was the start of my treatment. I started seeing the non-diet dietitian who specialised in disordered eating. Was diagnosed with binge eating disorder, started going to group therapy and things like that, and that set me on my path. Getting that diagnosis was probably the most beneficial thing for me.
You became aware of what was...
Yeah, recovery is probably ongoing for me, even though I haven't recently engaged in these behaviours, but I feel like it's something that I still need to be mindful of. It's always at the back of my mind. Recovery was just seeing the healthcare professionals. So I had the dietitian, I had psychologists, psychiatrist, and it was also just engaging in things that made me feel good about myself and my body. So, we're talking about social media before, removing those triggers. So things like social media, so comparing myself to other people, people talking about diets was quite triggering as well. So removing myself from those things that didn't make me feel great about my body and instead putting myself into places where, all bodies were celebrated and, we focused on, talking about people doing amazing things rather than talking about the latest diets or what you were eating or what you weren't eating or how many times you'd gone to the gym that week. So it was just engaging in stepping away from that talk about diets and body image and food and, starting to engage in things that made me feel good about myself. So just knowing that I have the support there to help me through, that helps me feel confident to be able to, go seek support. The eating disorder, you spend so much time focusing on your body, food and, weight loss and things like that. It sort of takes over your life. So reconnecting with my values and what was important to me was...
what, can you talk about some of those, like what those values were or like...
Yeah, well, definitely family and connection. So, with my partner and our animals, but also, having compassion and kindness and being authentic. So I've sort of taken those values and my own lived experience and, started helping other women who are struggling with body image and... I'm incredibly passionate about sharing my story to empower others. So I found that was something that I really value, and that's actually helped me in my own recovery as well. I try to get them to reconnect with who they are aside from their body image, which is what I was talking about earlier. Just reconnecting with their true self and stepping away from the food and body image stuff because that takes up so much of your life, and also just being okay with who they are and we all are so different and unique, and I think it's so important to celebrate the diversity as well. So I'm very passionate about sharing that message. I think the main barrier for me was, lack of knowledge of the eating disorder, because I wasn't aware of its existence. I didn't know how to seek help, and, I didn't even know that, butterfly could help with that thing. It was not something that I ever thought of. So I think the main barrier for me was just not hearing other people share their story of binge eating and not knowing that it existed and, not knowing where to seek help. So when I was back in school, we had very limited education on mental illness as a whole, and the only eating disorders that I ever saw were generally represented in the media, like in movies and on TV shows, and it was, the two main ones being anorexia and bulimia. And because I wasn't, showing any of those stereotypical symptoms, I didn't think I had an eating disorder. So,
So it was the narrow way in which eating disorders
did
made you feel like you didn't have it.
Yeah, exactly, because I couldn't see myself represented in those eating disorders. Well, then, I didn't have an eating disorder, so I didn't engage in eating disorder support, such as butterfly. It's changed dramatically. I've never felt so more confident and comfortable in my skin and who I am as a person. It's enabled me to reassess my life and try and figure out what it is I want to do, and it's led me to the path of becoming a body image coach and working with women who were like me a few years ago and struggling with that which just brings me so much joy to see them, you know, feeling confident and comfortable in their own skin like I am now. Yeah. I think there's quite a stigma around body image issues, and eating disorders is, you know, they're not worthy of seeking help because, you know, body image is, you know, a bit superficial, or I think there's that stigma. Yeah.
People don't feel like something's serious.
Yeah, that it's not serious enough. So, you know, even if you're not struggling with an eating disorder or food, I think if you're not feeling good in your body, if you're feeling like you need to change your body to be worthy, to be accepted, then I think it's really important to speak to someone about it, because that's not normal. You shouldn't feel unworthy in your body.